Hi, today we're going to be looking at the spread of Islam and seeing how this small group of Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula are going to wind up going and spreading their new religion from beyond Arabia to much of the known world. So when Muhammad died in 632, we had about Western Arabia being controlled by Muslims. We're going to see that it's going to quickly spread by 634, we're going to have almost the entire Arabian Peninsula, and then just in 10 more years, we're going to see Egypt, Persia, Syria, and other places being ruled by Muslims. Now, Muhammad died suddenly. No one expected him to pass. He made that mistake that everyone seems to their first time in life, dying. Since he hadn't given any directions on who should be his successor, there was an immediate clash and disagreement between two different groups. Some said that the caliph or successor should be related to Muhammad, which the only person related to Muhammad would be his son-in-law Ali, who then had Muhammad's two grandchildren. However, others said that it could be other Muslims. Now, the first four caliphs are all going to be close to Muhammad. The capital is not going to be Mecca like you were probably expecting. It will eventually become the capital of Islam, but for now it was Medina, which, as you remember, is the city of the Prophet, and that's where Muhammad had fled from Mecca before his general acceptance and him winning the war. Now, the objective of these caliphs was to spread their religion, to go and preach to all Muhammad's message of submission to Allah. Now, those first four caliphs, after they die, we're going to have a new group ruling, and they're going to be called the Umayyads. Now, the Umayyads are going to be a different Arabic family, and they are going to go and set up their capital in Damascus. Now, if we look at the map here on the bottom right, we see that Damascus is a much more centralized location. It makes sense for this to be the capital, especially since we know much of the Arabian Peninsula is desert. Putting the capital in Damascus means it is central between Egypt and through Persia. It's getting close to the Middle East, Mesopotamia. So we're able to go and have all of the different transportation trade routes because remember, they don't have phones, they don't have emails, they don't have technology to make communication easy. So a central location for a capital is very important. We can see that a little better on this map here. Notice the centralized location of Damascus. Now this is the same map that you have in your book, which you use for questions 2, 3, and 4 of your homework. We see the rapid expansion of Islam. 632, Muhammad's death, as I said, Western Arabia. Then we see quickly, within 30 years, what we know as the Middle East being ruled by Muslims. And then, after 90 more years, even going into Europe, Western Africa, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. So the question is, how were these once divided tribes able to become so successful? Well, really, they had a fantastic military. For generations, the different Arabic tribes have been battling each other. They often fought on horseback. They were great with the sword. So if you compare this to, say, the Byzantine military, which eventually will start utilizing cavalry, but primarily fought with infantry and used things like spears and swords, you're going to see mounted cavalry are going to be more effective than infantry typically. There also was a zeal that the Arabs had. They were inspired by their religion. They wanted the world to know Islam. And if they were to die, they would instantly go to paradise, their version of heaven. So they're fighting with all they have with no fear because it's a win-win situation. Either they conquer you, and then therefore they've won, or they die and they have paradise. Now, another aspect of the Arab success can actually be based on what their opponents did. The previous empires of Persia and Byzantium, which went and ruled over these places, they were typically very harsh with people who did not follow the religions that they set forth, either Zoroastrianism or then Christianity. When the Arabs came in, they allowed people to practice their own religions, let people's lives stay relatively similar. The Byzantines and Persians were oppressive to them, so when the Arabs came in and were lenient, they wound up appreciating, they willingly accepted their new rulers. Now, let's get this straight. It wasn't completely great to not be a Muslim under this. You still had to pay taxes and were not permitted to do every kind of work, but the fact that you're able to practice your own religion was pretty good. And many people seeing, well, Islam is monotheistic, my faith is monotheistic, many people wound up eventually making the switch. Now, another aspect, and we sing about this in our song, Missionaries, Conquest, and Trade, is, of course, the missionaries aspect. Sufis, or missionaries, were going all throughout the Arab Empire teaching people about Islam, how to go and follow the 5 pillars, who Muhammad was, what it means to submit to Allah. And on top of that, we know how in the Arabian Peninsula, the Bedouin tribes and many other Arabs became merchants, and how trade was part of their lifestyle. And this trade, of course, people communicated with each other. So as people came and gave their goods, they often gave their testimonies as well. And we're going to see Islam spreading very, very far. Timbuktu in West Africa, Indonesia in Southeast Asia. They're all going to go and hear Muhammad's message, and many people will convert. Now, I alluded to this on our first slide, that there were disagreements within Islam. Now, Ali is going to be our 4th caliph. One group will consider him the only true caliph after Muhammad. And we're going to see Islam have a schism. It's going to split into 2 different groups. The first group are the Shiites, also known as the Shia. And they said that only Ali's descendants should be the caliphs. Only people related to Muhammad. However, another group called the Sunnis said that the Umayyad Caliphate was fine. Any good any good Muslim could be caliph. Now, the Umayyads were Arab, and we're going to see it's going to be very Arab-centric. We'll get to that struggle when we get to the Abbasid Caliphate. Most Muslims today are Sunni. Now, the Abbasids are going to say, wait a minute. You should only have to be a good Muslim to be successful here. The fact that the Umayyads made Arabs the center of attention was problematic, because now there are Persian Muslims, there are African Muslims, there are Muslims from all over. So therefore, when the Abbasids overthrew them, there was more equality amongst the groups. There were no special taxes for non-Arabs, and they made sure everyone could receive the same jobs. Now, what's going to be wonderful about the Abbasid Caliphate, as opposed to focusing on military conquest, they're going to solely focus on trade, scholarship, and the arts. They're really going to usher in a golden age that we're going to talk about in the future, about how we're going to have an explosion of scientific discoveries, technology, arts, buildings, all sorts of really wonderful things. The city of Baghdad is going to be their capital. And we're going to see once again, it's going to be in somewhat of a centralized location. Here is just showing the split that we have here. So we have Sunni and Shia Islam. We have our caliphs. Now the Shia go straight to Ali, as we can see, whereas Sunnis accept Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman. And this split is still something that exists today. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.